Oh,
Here we
nice.
go. Asgard.
Yeah, yeah, looks amazing.
Okay, there we go.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for taking time out, to do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy to.
Awesome. Great to know. So just a quick intro about Kate. The game industry knows her as the original Thor, a lady behind some of the most awesome game like Halo and all, former director of International Game Developer Association, IGDA, and rest, she herself can introduce herself better, right? So, Kate, please.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much.
So yeah. So just to give a quick intro on like why am I doing this? It's a very clear agenda that it's out there. It's pretty depressing. It's a lot of negativity. People are dying. People are struggling, suffering, all those kind of things happening. And I truly believe that gamers are the guys who are like the most positive people usually because we have been fighting evil forever, since the days of Pac-Man and even before, like, all the Space Invaders, stuff like that. So, and whenever shit happens, we are out there to, go and attack that, right? So, and we know how
Hmm.
to do that. So I guess, and that's why I'm like collecting a lot of positive thoughts from people, and especially the game industry people, because, and of course we know there are a lot of struggles in working, work from home and all those kind of things, which is like,
Hmm.
a lot of people are talking about it. So my focus is largely just to talk about the positive things, what we
Yeah.
derive, what positive we can derive from this whole thing, so that's why I'm
Yeah.
doing it.
Well, I
So
think it's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, we face all kinds of adversity. I mean, this
mhm.
happens to be an adversity that we all are sharing.
Yeah,
But on any given day, I mean, any one of us are dealing with, a loss of a loved one or loss of a pet or
yeah,
loss of a job or something like that. So
sure.
we tend to deal with adversity more individually and less as a
Hmm.
huge collective. And so I think that's one
Absolutely.
of the things that is really different here.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
how
agree.
how do we learn as a society? How do we deal with
Exactly.
adversity together?
Uh-huh. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much my thoughts, about this. Like, and especially, it actually connects with your life motto also, like Jogify. We'll touch, upon that. So of
Yeah.
course, this is probably the longest time you are staying home, right? So,
It is so far, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, for me, it's like I've been working from home for over 15 years. So
right,
it's not as far as working from home, it's really not different. All it is like an extended stay at home.
right.
The only thing that's different for me is I'm not on a plane every week,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
that is different. I mean, I miss it. I like planes. I like traveling, and I like
Uh-huh.
visiting different places and events
Mm.
and public speaking. And I mean, I've been still I'm speaking at virtual events, which is
Right,
great.
right. But still, the personal connection is missing, right? Meeting people
Oh
and
yeah,
totally.
yeah,
So I understand that. That's pretty much my life was.
yeah,
So, but
yeah.
yeah,
Same here.
it's a cool down time. Probably, we can look back and introspect and do a lot of things.
Right.
So great. Otherwise, how is it going for you? Like sitting at home, so you're keeping yourself busy with virtual conferences and anything specific?
Well,
You know,
yeah,
how,
it's been super busy for me actually. I mean, of course, I'm
nice.
as executive director of the Global Game Jam, so we had our
Hmm.
event back in January, and that
Yeah.
went really great. And so it was another record-breaking year for us. And so now we're looking forward to doing a virtual version of what we call GGJ Next,
Hmm.
which is the version of Global Game Jam for younger people. So we're going to be doing that probably in July. And
Hmm.
then, so that all the global game jam stuff's keeping me busy. And then my
Awesome.
culturalization work that I've been doing for many, many years now, and
Yeah.
that's keeping me very busy right now. There's been a lot
Awesome.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been kind of crazy. So, so again, it's like for me, it's not too much is different. I mean, I'm keeping
Uh-huh.
myself really busy with work.
Awesome.
Um, like many people, though, I think, I'm still convinced that by the time this is all over, we're going to become a race of hobbits. And what I mean by that is that we're all getting kind of a little bit softer, maybe a little bit rounder, because we're not doing as much activity, and then we're living in very clean homes because we're all
Yeah.
cleaning our house.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. I agree.
I mean, I've done tons of cleanup around my house, which is great because I travel so much. Like even my office here, it's just I have not had a proper cleanup of this office for over 3 years, and now I finally
Wow.
did, and I
Wow.
feel really
Okay.
good about that.
Oh,
So I did tons of yard work and all kinds of stuff. So it's like it feels very domestic, which is a strange feeling for me. But at the same
right.
time, it feels good because I finally did all this stuff that I should have done years ago.
Uh, yeah. Never late. So awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, great that you talked about the culturalization, So because you always talk about bridging the gap between West and East, and having that sanity check there, and so this is
Hmm.
pretty unique situation, where West and East are all affected, right? So do
Yes.
you think it will have any impact on your culturalization advances? Have more thought process behind that and other things going forward? Do you think that
I
have?
I think to some degree it might, because I mean I do think that it's getting people to realize that the way that you frame even a problem like a pandemic, where we have like the president here in the United States, saying it's a Chinese virus,
Chinese.
saying things like that, and it's so inappropriate because it's like, no, it's
Absolutely.
it's if it was a Chinese virus, then why does it affect all other human beings?
Right.
It's a very stupid thing to say. So
Yeah. We found the race of a virus also.
yeah. So I do think when we hear news items like that and it's broadcast all around the world, I do think it gets people thinking about, maybe it's inappropriate to say things like that, or maybe how we frame this in certain ways, and then of course that will spill into other things like people's work, where they're like, well, maybe we shouldn't say this in this thing that we're making or whatever.
Right.
um so I'm hoping it'll have some certain kind of awareness, but I mean, all really the underlying thing, kind of like I mentioned before, is that it's really showing that we are all connected in one way or another, and that this world has
Right.
become very small.
Right.
um, and so the transmission of this virus, I mean, if we had not had jet planes and things like that, it's like, no, it would not have spread nearly as quickly as it had, but that's not the
Right.
world we live in.
Right.
So I think there's a huge advantage to that
Uh-huh.
sense that this virus, it basically in a way becomes a common enemy that we're all fighting. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I think that, to me, some of the positive lining of this is not just that, though there's two levels. I mean, I think as game developers and game players, a lot of people in
Hmm.
the gaming space are united in the fact that, we are, a lot of people are relying on us to provide a form of escape for them. And
Right.
I think it's great. I think it's also kind of funny how the World Health Organization, that just several months ago classified us
But
as a gaming disorder, is now
absolutely.
they're now
Yeah.
praising video
Contradicting
games.
completely now.
Yeah. And all it took was a pandemic for people to wake up and realize, oh, games actually can be useful and beneficial.
Right.
um, so I think there's that level of it, which I think is really great in terms of being a kind of cohesive force for the game industry, but also I think on the global scale too, just, people being able to recognize that, we're all human beings. The
Hmm.
commonality is that any one of us can get this thing, one of us can be affected or die from it. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
all of our social, political, all the other crap that we layer upon each other is,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's it's pretty irrelevant,
Right.
actually.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I absolutely agree with your point. So great. So again, we keep talking about, how depressing, it's all around us. Of course, we are one of those few lucky ones,
Mhm.
who are like doing errands and stuff, and keeping us busy and stuff like that. But otherwise, like a lot of people dying all around, right? So in this state, what do you think? How we can stay positive? How mostly, if you are like game industry person, gamer, or someone, how you can stay positive, all along? What do you think is the secret sauce, and
Well,
and productive also, like you are right now,
right.
So
Well, I mean, to being positive, I mean, there's so many things to be thankful for. Excuse me. And to me, that's really the key, is to think about what do you have. When all these governments are saying shelter at home, well, if you've been at home, somewhere, be thankful you have a roof over your head.
right.
You've got somewhere that you can actually shelter in. There's a lot of people who don't. And there's a lot of basic fundamentals to our living situations around the world that we can be thankful for. But beyond that, for people who are in the industry, or I think we should be thankful for the fact that the artwork that we do, the games that we create, and the cultural benefit of what we're doing is finally being recognized
Pretty
in
awesome.
a positive light. And I think that's really, really important to focus upon. Yeah, there's all kinds of disruption. There's events that are not happening and all this other stuff, but that's going to pass. That's the thing. We're already seeing in a lot of countries, the curve is starting to flatten to some degree. We're
Right.
already hearing some countries about opening up slightly, a little bit. We know it's going to be a cautious, long process. But I think, the fact that we're seeing some glimmers of hope here and there, we're seeing, less cases, less deaths, things like that. Yeah, there are some hot spots still, but generally the news is more positive to me than negative right now.
Awesome.
I mean, I think we've already passed through the worst of it. That's not to say it couldn't come back again, and because it is a virus now that we as human beings are going to have to cope with every year. I have no doubt we're going to have to deal with it again next winter. It's going to flare up again. To some degree, but we're going to be more prepared for it. Now we know what to do, and hopefully let's keep our fingers crossed that maybe a vaccine will be developed in the near future. That'll help us all out. So to me, it's like the level of disruption we've all been facing. It's difficult not to focus on it, but I think for a lot of us, we need to focus on doing what we do, which is, doing what we love. Focus on your passion, make games. This is a fantastic opportunity for people to be focused on doing what they love. And if you're finding that you still have leftover time on your hands, well, then do something, find something else you want to do. Like, I mean, as busy as I am, I actually am using Duolingo to learn Scottish Gaelic. Why not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm learning piano.
Yeah, it's fun. So
Absolutely.
this is. So to me, this is when you're finding yourself being locked down like this. I actually think it's a fantastic growth opportunity. And I know a lot of developers who are kind of sitting back contemplating the bigger picture, because now we've been faced with this, whether we like it or not, we've been faced with something of a reset, which I think is, frankly, we needed, in my opinion. It's given us all a chance to just slow down, stop and think a bit, think about the bigger picture about your career, the game you're working on, other things around you, and also evaluate what's really important.
Wow.
Especially like, companies who are, letting their employees work from home. It's like, well, I hear some people complaining about that, but it's like, well, what would you rather do? Would you rather have the choice of working from home and setting your own hours, or would you rather be at the company where they're forcing you to crunch 16 hours a day? So, I would think there's one of the, so there's a lot of really positive things to think about in my view. And I know it's difficult because part of it's the psychology. Each one of us is different. Some people tend to lean more negative, some lean more positive, but my view, and I'm speaking as someone who's basically an eternal optimist. I already see the silver lining in this, and I'm basically trying to embrace it.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. Thing. In fact, you pretty much covered what I wanted to ask, like especially how the indies and other guys should actually feel like, during this crisis, because it can easily, crush them if they start thinking negative, but there's a silver lining there, there's a blessing in disguise,
Well, I think especially for indies, it's like, yeah, there's a huge loss of not having the live events to go to and show off
Yeah,
your game and look for
absolutely.
investors and all that. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, it's still possible to look for investors. It's still possible to show off your game. It's just not as maybe not as efficient. But
Right.
again, this to me, this is a fantastic opportunity if you're working on an indie project to really sit back and look at what you're doing and reevaluate some of your design choices and really
Awesome.
use this time to perfect the game, because you
Wow.
know the event season is going to come back, and
Right.
so now it's your chance to really try and improve the game as much as you can, so that when you are able to go back to events and show it off, you're going to have something that's likely going to be much better.
Can you suggest some of the tools or some of these kind of events that are happening where people can actually, indies can actually go and show stuff and stuff? And so,
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's there's various events that are still going on. I mean, we just had the Pocket Gamer did their digital
hmm
event.
hmm
Then there's also the Games Beat Summit, which is virtual, which will be at the end of April. There's also Nordic Game, which is going to be virtual at the end of May. And so
hmm
there are a lot of these events that were typically live events are also doing a virtual component. So I think if you kind of look around and scour out there are opportunities. Another
right.
thing that I've seen some people doing are sort of these spontaneous Zoom meetings where they
hmm
just gather a whole bunch of people together, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things an indie could
Karen
do.
did yesterday, right? So she did the
Yeah,
whole PR thing, right? So,
yeah, exactly. So, like if you're an indie developer, you could plan on like a certain time or date and say, hey,
right.
on this day, we're going to be streaming gameplay of our game. We're inviting people to come and look at it and comment on it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Do something like that and try and, use your network and just and even if you get a few people who get on your stream and give you feedback, that's better than nothing at all.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will actually get inspired, and will get a lot of valuable information from this. So great. So what do you see about this world? Post the whole, like, once it returns to the normal. What do you think? Will change largely because you preach geography and everything, right? So you understand the whole. A global issue in much broader way than most of the gamers do. So what do you
Yeah.
think? Maybe,
Well, there's a lot that's going to change, frankly. I mean, I think not all of it, in my view, is going to be necessarily positive.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get into the deep politics of it, but
Yeah.
we're already seeing some governments around the world take advantage of this opportunity to become even more totalitarian, which is
hmm
absolutely not the right direction to take. But
hmm
unfortunately, that's the direction they're taking, and so they see this as a chance to do some power grabbing.
Yeah.
That's a
Bullying
very
each
negative.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically, the other thing that we're going to see, this is when we do get back to normal. There never will be a complete normal, but
Oh.
I think we're going to be looking at a lot of technology being put in place to track the spread of viruses. I mean, you're looking at like Apple and Google with their app, where they're
Mhm.
actually using the technology of the phones to track where the virus is spreading and to
Mhm.
like warn you if you've been near somebody who has the
Yeah.
virus. I mean,
Yeah.
that starts feeling like kind of big brotherish, scary government stuff. I know the intention of it is positive because we need to be able to track and trace. That's really
Right.
important. But at
Uh-huh.
the same time, there's a certain level of personal liberty that may be in jeopardy because of it. Because it's so that's going to be an issue. I think that society is going to have to debate is
Mhm.
how much more personal liberty do you want to give up in order to be able to track something like the virus spread? So do you want people to know your location at all times? Do you want to our government's going to do forced vaccinations of everybody?
Mhm.
um, we don't know. We don't know where the politics is going to fall out, but I do know that I think the world that we're going to be moving into post COVID-19 is going to be similar to how the world changed after 9/11, where the security regimes and
Right.
how we fly on the airlines and how we travel changed pretty dramatically as a result of 9/11. And so I
Absolutely.
think this is going to have a similar global effect of how we as human beings interact with each other. So we are going to go back to live events. I have no doubt about that. We're going to see
Mhm.
huge events like Gamescom again. Whether or not that happens this year, we'll see.
Right.
Um, but it is going to happen. But the difference is that we're going to have better knowledge about how do we track who's infected and who are they interacting with. And that's going to be a certain level of, to me, I believe, technological intrusion that on one level might be necessary for tracking this stuff, and on another level is pretty scary from a personal freedom standpoint.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's quite alarming. I can understand that. Great. So the final question. So do we all agree that we are living in a game?
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. I mean, you know, that's what's so funny. It's funny, but it's not. But you know, so much of the science fiction that we consume about zombie apocalypse and stuff like that, and so many video games that reflect that, including games about pandemics and viruses.
Right.
We've seen this scenario over and over and over again.
Right.
So I think, again, kind of going back to your earlier point, is that for those of us in the game space, none of this feels different. It doesn't feel new to us. It's just that it's reality rather than in a game.
Absolutely.
So on that level, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, it certainly feels like we're in a game. I mean, we're in an episode of the Twilight Zone or something. But it does not feel. But I think the world has felt that way for a few years now, for all kinds of reasons. So this is just like, I guess we are in the next level of the game now.
Awesome. That's another good thing, right? So if you're in the next level, it's always fine, right? Eventually we will win, you know?
Yeah, I think that COVID-19 is we're in the midst of a boss battle, so we can go to the next level.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing way to put it up. So pretty awesome. Hey, thanks for your time. And it was really insightful, a lot of information, you know, especially for indies and all these people. And, you know, and stay positive, stay indoor, and thanks again, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Take care. Stay safe.
You too. Right.
All right. Bye-bye.